point I'm
We did the
making.
sewer and the road and everything.
We have roads,
Except now it's
and
crumbling.
maybe even the majority, that do not have sewers, that do not have curbs, that do not have any of those amenities that are in the newer sections. My road happens to have storm sewers, major investment went into those. Mine has curbs, mine has everything, but there are many roads that do not. And we are not talking in these plans about changing any of that. We're talking
No.
about simply
No.
designing to deal with this. Now, Westwood is the exception because that was only built in the mid-90s, and that has all of the amenities, and it still failed ridiculously quickly. So there's a problem with the construction. But let's just get back to,
Well,
From-
Berkshire is a prime example. Berkshire was built in, had to be redone because all the hill, let's think about it, everything underneath started sliding down the hill and created the entire way up. But the part that was done at the bottom, and that was kept until after I was off council, because they kept trying to get the number one got knocked down. So the water is something very serious. You drive around in Park Ledge and you're like, well, why would these roads be bad? It's the only road in there. It's like, holy mackerel. You come to that road and it's got that major,
yeah.
Question. One of the issues that we were concerned about is after the spring and after you looked at things, if the order of repair has changed. And I get the impression that it's not. You're still suggesting Caroline Westwood and repairing that order.
Yeah, I mean, if we redrove the streets, my guess is we would probably just shift more of the streets that were in the fair category would be bumped into poor after the winter.
But my question is,
No, I think
what we need to know tonight is you're still at Airwood, Westwood.
correct.
your five-year plan hasn't changed from when you gave it to us, don't worry, because I've got both. So you haven't.
No, this is not changed.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's talk to, if recycle, repave is the strategy, then of these options here, what is our price per square yard or whatever you're talking about? Point to the one that reflects that plan.
Sylvia, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
The total, not that I'm not interested in the price per yard, but the amount that's listed on the large sheet, is that still playing or is that changing?
No, we haven't changed that. I mean,
And you still think that's a good number?
to work from, yeah. I mean, I can give you a detailed estimate based on a detailed scope, more information. Those are planning numbers, so
I
didn't-
understand
yeah.
that, I just
Yeah,
wanna
so
know
we haven't
that-
changed those.
But is it on the high end?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so that's good, and so I'm not sure if we need to know exactly what all you're gonna do to these streets, we just need to have the money to do them. Go ahead.
Go ahead. So I'm asking you to point to the technique here that
Well,
you're.
so the recycling that we talk about isn't in here because it's performance-based and it doesn't fit any one, it's a combination of several of these categories.
Okay, so if we had a way, the
I could
reason I'm
give you-
asking for a cost estimating technique is, I think we're gonna keep using this technique. And I would, we have many roads that are in this category.
So what I could provide you is an equivalent cost per square yard based on specific bid history in your town. So we've done this on South Freeway
Okay,
Road,
all right.
we've done it on South Bedford, both different types of projects, but we can still get you in the ballpark on average cost per
Well,
square
yeah,
yard.
that's what I'm talking about.
And then
So,
we would be able to do several, get a lot of
You could
these
probably
repairs
stretch-
done,
you could
instead
probably
of just the two right now.
well, what's the
There's
difference?
3 on the road.
Well, no, I'm just saying, if we change the aspect of it though, try
Well,
to,
but we're not talking about that, Rita, we're talking about just the tool to estimate, as he said, there's now 32 roads in this
Right, I
condition,
know.
and only 12 of them have been estimated at any level. And we're going to have, according to him, and I believe it's true based on what I've seen and driving around and stopping and looking, that we're gonna have additional roads that are in the fair condition be moved to poor.
right, I know that, I was.
So we're talking maybe, 60 or 70 roads that are in poor condition.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
So what we're saying is, this tool can help us just looking at a 5-year forecast in terms of expenditure, what we're likely to have to expend.
That's well and good down the road, but I think our issue here tonight
is, Dave, but it's also, because we have so many of these at this point, we are in a condition that doesn't just mean that we can focus only on this year. We've got to have an overall plan, that's what I'm saying. And the point of this is to try to get us into a position where we can forecast a budget annually for several years to get us into the right condition.
Well, and that was presented to us in February. This 5-year plan doesn't just do this year, it does 5 years, and so, when we met on the budget, it was indicative that if you look right across the board, you're looking at $500,000 minimum, and that doesn't include crack sealing or the other repairs that are done throughout the year just to keep the streets whole. But if you look at this, so, Brookdale and Meadowlawn, that's another $500,000 next year, it's 2015, and we've got Barkdale, Bonnie, Bruce, those beach streets. Another $500,000, and then in 2017 was the other beach street, Bradford, Roseland, and then in 2018 was Roseland, Driftwood, and Waters. We still have a bunch that we have to care for, but at least they got the first 5 years identified, so I think they've already gone up. To Dave's point, we need to figure out what we're doing this year, but we've already got, we have a pretty good feel of what you need every year.
I don't know that we do for this reason. And, I understand your point, and I understand the approach that's being taken. But let me make an observation. There's 32 roads that are in poor condition right now, and we hear from him, we're probably gonna have a lot more. Being in poor condition means that they are disintegrating at a pretty rapid rate. So the idea that these 12 roads being fixed is adequate to deal with the basic crisis we have, I don't think is correct. That's all I'm saying.
Well, in the comments there are identified how
That's
these
all
could
my
be
point,
cared for,
exactly.
so they did do that. But I think what you're looking at, if you wanna do all 4 roads, talking a couple million.
Well,
Well, if I just took
No.
these that are on here, I'm already up to 3. So,
Yeah.
and I hear your point, but then what you need is a plan to resurrect, how do I put a road program back in place, so that this year you care for the 2, the 3 that are the most in need, but then know that next year, yes, I'm gonna be able to do 2 or 3 more, and the year after, yes, in parallel, still doing the maintenance, and, as Nick said, at some point, wouldn't you love to have a plan that says you get through everything in a 20-year cycle, so that in 20 years, I'm on the moon somewhere.
well, I understand. I'm not sure that we need a 20-year cycle. I think that's part of what is in question. But what I am saying is this. The condition of our roads is much greater in cost than $2 million for these 12. It's much bigger. And
I don't think anybody disagrees with you.
And so what I'm saying in addition is, this $2 million is a drop in the bucket compared to what we're gonna need, and we need to be paying attention to that reality, that's all I'm saying. And so, moving along, so you're gonna just basically argue for recycle, repay for these poor roads,
Wherever it's appropriate,
and,
not, like Nick said, right, we'd have to, if we knew what was gonna be allotted, I could
well, let's.
go down the list,
Right,
check the streets, see what we could fit in your budget. Again, I just had to add that, as a qualifier, as long as that street happened to be a worthy candidate. Because if we did look at it and found something suspicious about sub-drainage or anything like that, I certainly wouldn't recommend it. Let's just recycle it.
Can I ask this question of the original? Because when you first gave us this in May, so a couple of weeks ago, both Westwood and Airline had full depth reconstruction.
right.
Is that the same as recycle and repay?
No.
Because that means I
Full
take
depth
it all the way
reconstruct
out.
means you're taking it out and rebuilding it.
Get down to the base.
Yeah, right.
And so,
So
Is
my,
there a reason-
the revised numbers will come in.
right, is there a reason why you go back to the recycle and repay?
Then you're only going probably like 1 road a year. We try to get at least 3 a year.
Okay, so basically this strategy is based on the severity of the condition that we're in and the number of roads.
Right.
Okay, understood. All right, so we have to be looking at more estimates than what we've seen here if we're gonna get the 4 roads into a cycled plan. So that's, and I don't know how you're gonna do that, but maybe you can just use what he was talking
Well, we've
about.
got placeholders here, right?
Yeah, I know.
You know,
Good
throw
job.
those numbers in there.
Based on those, your view of what to do. Now, moving to the obvious thing, unless there's any more that we want to do with that discussion, does anybody want to add anything to it? Okay, then let's talk about the financial plan for road maintenance and repair. And Scott, I want you to talk about the revenue projections for this year and the annual, what we've been doing in terms of roads and what you think we.
This is just a recap of what we have in here. It just highlights revenues. Reiterating so much that general fund.
Okay.
It just shows you the revenue that we've received in the last 2 years, 2014, and what my projections are for 14. I think the only thing I want you to come away from it, even though everyone says the excise tax and the gas tax and auto registration is significant, when you're looking at the overall budget that we spend in the 201 fund, it still only comes out to about 25 to 30% each year, because we transfer from our general fund, which is our income tax and our property tax that we receive. In 2012, you look all the way down to the last column, 1,395,240 was transferred, and then last year 1,150,000. And again, this year we cut it short of $1 million. So we didn't transfer an additional $150,000. That's because we had a little bit of a carryover, and to complete what we needed to do for our budget, we didn't to save money from the general fund. We didn't need to move an additional $100,000, and because of the extra carryover that wasn't spent. So when we're talking about streets, though, you can see that's nowhere near fully funded from the gas tax, auto registration, et cetera. And I just put the overtime, you know, I'm projecting that we're gonna have a carryover of $267,000 in the 201 fund, but there's a lot of unforeseen costs, and some of that's related to the heavy snowfall. The overtime, as you can see, that we already budgeted all the way down. We spent 51,000 out of 80, that's 64%, and that's most of the snowplow crews. The other departments, so the mechanics or the sign shop, and they also contribute some to the snow plowing as well. But you know, there's 2 options to fund this. Obviously, you either go into further debt and do a short-term note and hope that it passes something, either property tax or increase in income tax, or you take down our general fund further if we go over balance. And that's obviously an option that's available to council. But in the short term, if council doesn't think that we're going to get any money before 2017, it's a difficult decision to spend more money on roads when you know, we're looking at 2017 as a benchmark that we're going to roll off some debt, and the income tax that's currently 2% will drop down to 1.75, and the safety center roughly is about $467,000 that we've been paying out of general fund. So that'll free up some money, but then we have another bond that will increase actually in 2017 by additional, I think, $130,000. So that net of 465 or so is only going to see a bump of about 300,000 in general fund.
What's that?
What's that?
What bond is jumping?
The one that we rolled over from, I believe it's called 2010 bond fund.
What was it?
What's that?
The bond.
So in the big picture, Scott, the unencumbered carryover in 2015 is what?
In, for general fund?
Current state today, total unencumbered carryover balance.
At the end of this year, you're asking?
Correct.
Right.
January 1, what's our unencumbered? My favorite question to you.
I think we targeted 2.5.
All right,
It'll be
does that include the $500,000
No.
of emergency reserve?
No, that
So really,
$500,000,
it's $3 million.
yes,
So $3 million unencumbered.
yes.
Scott, can you kind of tell us where we are in the revenue picture here? Our projection was to drop from.
1.3 for the income tax. You know, I got the Rita email yesterday, and it showed the actual May report, which is very favorable for us, and which is good news as far as if we're on track of what we did last year. We were only about $62,000 off, but again, I'm using Rita's figures of 1.3, and I called our friend Brian Thunberg, and he ran another scenario, and he's sticking to his 1.3, which I was hoping, obviously, that he was going to be off on his prediction, because we're already into April. But having said that, everything that's collected all the way up to now is based on that 2.25 rate.
Right.
So as we start getting into the May collections, and then we'll get into June, we're going to see that taper off. And I had a conversation with him today to reiterate what we had talked about. And each month going forward, when you see that historical summary that I included in the packet, you know, we're in June, we're at 782, and again, July 708, 661 for August. He's definitely trending $100,000 to $150,000 based on each month. So he's quite confident he's going to hit that 1.3 million that he predicted.
The reduction in revenue of 1.3 million. Now, he did run those scenarios that you had asked him to run, okay. So, you know, I couldn't tell a trend line because of exactly what you're talking about
Right.
here. And so he's staying with his projection. We are going to be, actually, we're at about 2.4 because we did have to pay back that inheritance tax to the county. So 2.4 at this point. I mean, basically, that's what we should be at the beginning of the next fiscal year. And we have a big set of commitments for next year, which again, it'll be you know, I don't know what he's going to be projecting for next year, if we're going to be up a little or down a
Well, then
little.
it becomes just a natural growth, which most people are going to,
Yeah, can we
hopefully
look
plug
at
in
a-
2%.
Yeah, could we look at something from previous years to know that in a normal course of events, what that would be?
Sure. But again, the last 2 years for all municipalities have been, considering how low we went and we struggle upward,
Right.
significantly higher. But I don't think anybody would really want to go and support more of a 2% revenue, take a chance on, being wrong.
Okay,
When you plug that number in and then you feel like you want to spend that number and you're wrong, then it's,
well, obviously,
further into the hole.
obviously. So we're gonna be, just the estimate that we have done is that we're gonna burn up another $1 million in the reserve that we have
Over what time period?
over next year.
For what?
$50,000 more will be SIP loan, and $50,000 will be starting the trucks that we budgeted. So, and then the increase in our union contracts that we already are committed to, and hopefully, healthcare will stay stable. We put a little bump of natural 2% into healthcare, and then the hole that we are already in, about 600 or something.
Didn't we put another $500,000 in like a longevity fund? So we
We
really
have
have
that
like
for-
3.5.
No, it's $500,000 in longevity and $500,000 in emergency.
So we actually have 3.5 unencumbered.
Well, but
No,
we've got to, basically, that fund that we
We
put
got
aside
it
for
here.
retirement
We got
has
it.
got to be there.
Absolutely.
I'm not suggesting we
But
go
he
out
said
and
3.5.
spend.
It's
3.5.
It's,
No, it's.
yeah, we had 2.5, and
Right.
then the other million total, so
Which
it's
is?
3.5.
3.5.
But he's
Yeah,
saying though the retirement fund is the same as reserve, which it is not.
It's,
Well, no, not the number, but the use of it is
Oh,
different.
okay,
Right, the longevity fund can only use the longevity.
right.
Well, the whole point of this all is, I mean, even with all that being known, I just wanted to get a true number. I think we all realize that that's not gonna be enough to, maintain the number of roads that we need to maintain. And I guess the question I think we all need to answer is a 5-year plan enough, or do we want to plan for the future to say, we want to dedicate these funds to repair these roads consistently so we don't get into this jam again? Because I think we're all on the same page in that we don't have enough to do it. We can point fingers any which direction we want to, but the fact of the matter is, what are we gonna do in terms of do that? How much is it gonna cost? I mean, I think that leads into a finance meeting, which I think is appropriate.
I think it's appropriate too. I agree with that. I think that what we're talking about is some options for dedicated financing for roads. Some things that I consider, you know, the financing options that I've thought about. And we've looked at some other cities, and most of the cities do not have a dedicated road fund, but they may not have the conditions that we're in at this point. What I would suggest we look at, because we know that the rec center tax is going to expire in the middle of 2017, if we looked at replacing, we have a lot of money in the rec fund at this point to pay off our debt there. If we looked at replacing that particular 0.25%, maybe even this year, with a 0.25%, half of which would be for the roads and half for the rec center going forward, we may be able to cover the continuing need. We have a major mess right now, that's absolutely the case. And I don't think a 5-year plan for roads is adequate, I will agree with you. I think that if we don't have a good plan for looking out to the future, I just don't think 20 years is probably realistic in our view. We may be able to do 30 to 35 to 40 depending on the use of the road. We can't do Shepherd and 82 every 40 years or we'll be on horse and buggy. But Air Lane or my road that I'm on, maybe we can do that 30 years, 35 years.
I think we ought to let your road go to dirt.
Oh, yes, you do, huh? Not
I'm
before
kidding,
yours,
I'm not.
not before yours do.
But the point I wanna make again, and I keep driving it home, is, you know, one of the things you have on here is the finance options, and we need to have, if we wanna dedicate it, what you're suggesting is in terms of like a 0.25% or whatever. You've got to include stormwater and roadways in the same, it has to be hand in hand, and I don't know that half of a 0.25% is enough to cover that. What I'm suggesting is, you know, I know we've talked about this a few times, but, you know, we can give that the I struggle with this word, reciprocity to Macedonia residents, give 100% of that back, which makes it a little bit more appealing, if that's what you're suggesting.
Well, what I'm suggesting is that we can find some options here. Now, as Scott indicated, these stormwater issues may be able to be addressed by a couple things. One is, we have a huge debt load right now, which is gonna drop. The general fund debt is between the building here and the various road debts and various other debts we have is running about $1 million a year. We are going to drop about $450 to $460 out of there that we're paying annually for this building. And at that point, I think we can pick up and dedicate more on not only road stormwater issues, but stormwater in general, because we have major problems all over the city with it, all over the city. Not just, and there are some people here from the north side of Ledge on North Bedford, and there's some of the Indian streets. But truthfully, we have water problems in almost every major area in the city. And part of it was our planning wasn't very good before in terms of how we did that. And we have allowed certain building to occur without the proper retention of water and direction of water. So now we gotta move forward.
Yeah, I don't know about that, I would just have to chime in on that statement. I mean, if we had developed improperly with regards to stormwater, the EPA would have been all, I mean, they do monitor that.
I'm not talking in the last 5 years ago, I'm talking, you know what I'm saying? We're not talking about you.
Detention, but I'm saying detention isn't only been the last 5 years.
No,
They've
I
been
know
doing it
that,
for
I'm just saying
20,
that if
30
you
years.
talk to residents in many of these areas, we have major water in the yard, in the
I
garage.
don't disagree
There
with
had been a
that.
stormwater committee and a plan that disappeared in the past 3
Again,
years.
we need funding.
Yeah, disappeared in the past 3 years.
Well, what I'm saying is there may be money, when that gets freed, to start applying it more regularly and efficiently to these stormwater issues.
But you need to also consider too, with this building as a great example, where how much did the heaters cost, or what were they?
$70,000.
I mean, these things keep popping up, we don't have enough to correct them, I mean, we're fixing half of the problem.
I understand.
And I think that when this stuff comes up, that money that rolls off that we're paying to the debt right now needs to go to you know, maintaining what we have. I don't think we've done a real good job of that, but that's because the funding always hasn't been there. The last thing we ever wanna do is go to the voters and say, hey, we need more money. But the reality is, that's kind of the situation we're in. And if we wanna do things the right way, we've gotta make a plan to do it the right way. We can't keep robbing Peter to pay Paul. You talk about the rec center, which is a great example, where that building needs help. I mean, the parking lot alone, we talked about $300,000. I mean, yes, it rolls off, but you got a parking lot for 300 grand.
Well,
I mean,
yes, we do.
And then you got, then there's a faction of people that, which, whether you agree or not, doesn't matter. You know, we told them we're gonna put a pool and an indoor basketball and volleyball. We've never done that, and whether or not they still want that, I don't know.
That's
They
phase
do.
two.
But that's where that money's gonna need to go.
Well-
If they, you know, this is the voter's decision, but what I wanna say is, what we have is not enough, we know that. I just wanna do it the right way, and if we can, and ask for it in the appropriate way, to start addressing these problems. I mean, we can't just keep pulling from here to there and letting other things go, because that's how we've gotten into this situation. That's when the problems have subsided. You know, Eileen Drive's a great example. That project's been on the books for 25 years. 25 years, that's stormwater.
I think that's longer than even you've been on council, right?
A
So-
lot longer. I mean,
It's just barely getting right.
it just continues. I mean,
It's-
it's one of those things where, because we have not funded these problems appropriately, because we always try to do our due diligence, and I think we've done a good job of that. But I think we need to take a step back and say, you know, how much do we really need to make this right? I don't think we're wasting money. I don't wanna ever suggest that, because I don't think that's happening at this point. I think what we're doing is good to say, here's what we need, this is how much we need to do it.
Well, part of what I would like to do, and just speaking for myself, is look at all of these issues and come up with an agreed plan to deal with it. Now, we may not have an agreement right now about the total plan, but I think that we need to get some reasonable look at how we would do any of this. As far as the things like additional rec center items, yes, and that's one of the reasons I asked for some estimating on the pool, for example, just because I'd like to have a forecast plan that would look at not just this year, but out, so that we can all figure out where this money is coming and going to. And I will tell you this, the fact that we didn't do this in the past, and we've had major problems because of it, should just tell us that we need to do it for the future. And whether we need additional revenues or we need to redirect some of the revenues in certain areas, right now we don't have the option with the rec center because the way it's written, you can't. And last year they got 1.1 million for the rec center and the debt load was about 620. Now, they're building up a fund, that's fine, I don't have a problem with that. But we need to be looking longer term at the use of this money, and I think roads have to be in a significant piece, and I also agree with you that we're gonna have to do something about stormwater on a regular basis. Now, we've got some help, maybe, if we can get regular money dedicated from whatever, whether it's Summit County or any ORSD or whoever starts collecting money in that area, we may get some money there.
That's what the stormwater committee had done, and that's when NERSD first ever talked about the fee, was at this table, and said, it's all going to us, we'll give you a portion. Luckily, a
Yeah,
large
okay.
portion got, well, a bigger portion, originally it was 10% if we got anything. And now it's fighting in the courts if we're gonna get anything.
Scott,
If they still get it or we get it.
Right.
So if you're thinking no, they're not gonna share, they're not gonna let you have 100%.
No, I'm not thinking 100%, no.
They won't even give us 50%, so.
They-
Anything they give us, any project we do is at their approval.
Right.
But it's more than
I thought
nothing.
the last court decision put most of that on hold.
It is on
Yeah.
hold
So
now.
why
Now
do
it's in,
We have no
in the
money.
That's been
Supreme
wrapped
Oh,
up
I
for
know, but
years.
we'll never know.
We're never
for
gonna see that
another
money.
Well,
year.
we're gonna have another
So
year
the
of
question
that.
is, let's talk about the roads.
Right.
You know, talking about a lawsuit and what's gonna happen a year from now isn't doing us any good,
Okay.
except agitating me. I'm too old to be agitated.
Uh-huh.
Scott, we're gonna deal with this issue on the immediate. The question is, we're gonna have to lower the 2.5 carryover. Would you agree? So I guess my question to you, what number are you comfortable with, and how is that gonna project for the next 2 years? If you can't give me that answer
Well,
tonight.
I would think that there's gotta be a consensus of council though to at least look for different revenue streams, whether they wanna go
Oh,
for
I
property
agree,
tax
I agree, but I'm just saying,
in the next 2 to 3 years.
we're not gonna resolve that
No.
this
I mean,
year.
to me, you know, and just my opinion, layman's, as far as road servicing, it sounds like you're gonna really need to get everything done to be able to achieve maintenance and maintain what good roads we have, and to start tackling the roads that need to be tackled. I would just put that figure out that we would need $800,000, which would be equivalent to 2 mills a year. And if we did 2
Scott,
mills,
that's not my question.
sorry.
Okay, but that's the
Listen,
future.
answer my
What
question
about
tonight
this
so
year?
we can go home.
What,
Or
you wanna go back down? You mean to further go back down?
If that's what we're gonna have to do to resolve some of these immediate issues, it's a roads project. If you can't give me the message and some information tonight, think about it, analyze it, give me the 2 questions.
All right.
How much are you comfortable going down? And what's the impact it's gonna have for the next 2 years? That's where we need to start, for the immediacy.
All right, we have, I think Nick had indicated he thought we ought to follow on the finance meeting. I tend to agree with you, and we'll get that scheduled.
Well, we can do it right now, we're all here. I don't see the point in waiting, we're sitting right
Yeah,
here.
schedule.
Let's,
Next Wednesday's good for me. Next Tuesday's good for you.
next Tuesday.
I think you gotta give some time for some of this.
Yes,
get
we
some
have to
work
give
done.
some time for some of this to be worked, but we will schedule it within a reasonable time here, and I'll let you know.
Thursday, June 5th.
I'm going to ask anybody in the audience, since this is a work session, but you haven't been able to say much.
How about Thursday, June
Would you like to say anything here in the
Tentatively,
audience?
could we tentatively say June 5th so people can plan? We're coming up on summer.
What is that?
It's a Thursday, and only because then it's a Thursday, only,
That's an off
because we
Thursday.
have the 22nd, I would say Tuesday.
I don't have a problem with June 5th, if nobody else does.
Okay, check your calendars, we can start the 5th.
If somebody has a problem, we email.
Right, but at least people can go look at their calendars,
Right.
because a
That's
reasonable
fine.
amount of time.
June 5th.
Thursday,
June 5th, everybody look at their calendar, make sure there's no big conflict, so we don't have to reschedule. Does anybody want to make a comment or ask?
Yes,
Oh, shit.
as far as the water situation, North Bedford, just north of Ledge, is catastrophic. My neighbor and I put in 15-inch pipes, and my neighbors just south of us have 6 inches of water in their front lawn, and a Niagara Falls flowing down between the 2 houses. So far, they've been lucky there's no water in their basement. What it's doing is washing away the culvert, it's washing away the berm, and some of the edge of the streets are starting to deteriorate. It has to be taken care of, otherwise we're gonna lose a quarter mile of North Bedford.
And I know, Jim, that you have talked about the, installation of these additional catch basins and that sort of thing going
No,
on.
no, not catch
Not
basins.
catch
There's,
basins.
there's really, that's probably the
This
flattest
area?
area in Macedonia.
This
Yes,
area,
it
It's a flood.
this area is in a floodplain. The type of,
Right.
the type
Okay,
of
so what are we
capital-
doing?
The type of capital project you're looking at here is gonna blow away these road
Yeah.
projects you're talking about. These are the projects that we had on cue with regional sewer districts, where if this storm tax was coming in, this was going to be one of the marquee projects that they were gonna come in. We're talking about land acquisition. This would have been one of the major regional detention basins that they would have to build upstream to try and catch this stuff before it even gets there. But to talk about storm sewers, like catch basins and conduits,
No,
floodplain,
no.
You can't do
it's not gonna do anything.
It's basically what it is the culvert pipes underneath the driveways, just south of it, are restrictive. They're too small, they can't carry the water.
Well, back then, a lot of people just put in what they wanted. There wasn't any type of structure. You have 12-inch pipe, you have 10-inch pipe, then it goes back to 15-inch pipe.
Yeah.
There's no structure there. You could put maybe the same size pipes, 15-inch, all the way down. All it's gonna do is allow the water to maybe flow, but the ditch lines will stay probably full. It's so flat there that there's really isn't any fall.
They shouldn't have been built.
Okay,
And
understood.
that was handled by the county.
It's built
That was
there.
50 years ago.
The
Yeah, so how
county.
about if we If we do
Okay,
this.
I live at 9328 North Bedford Road. I've lived there for 27 years, and we've been dealing with this problem for 27 years. I brought in pictures, time after time, to your meetings to show you what's going on. I personally go down the road and try to get the debris out of the pipes myself. I'm 75 years old. I should not have to do that, okay? If what you have said here today, that the problems with the stormwater and the base failure, eventually North Bedford Road's gonna, just fall apart. We're gonna have big chunks of it falling apart. When I asked, that something be done about it, about changing the sizes of the drains that go under the driveways, the entrance to your home. Well, I mean, after all of this time, 25, 27 years, you can't say everyone has to have the same size pipes that would make the water flow. When I went down today and I removed some of the debris from 3 houses down, the water started flowing perfectly. And this is my road, not my road, my yard. This is my yard, okay? This is my yard, right here. And it overflows into the street, even.
Mayor, have we resurrected the stormwater committee? Could we resurrect it?
And we've called any number of times to ask people to come out and take a look at it.
The stormwater committee had.
You have raised this
working with
issue
any of-
before, you're-
Oh,
Excuse me.
Lord, yes, I've come and I've shown those pictures. Those pictures are from like 10 years ago almost. But
Okay.
today, it's like double that.
It's worse now because
What
I put in
happened to the
15 inch
stormwater
I
pipes.
was
committee?
asking a question, could we resurrect the storm, because we had that as part of
Yes.
the plan of trying to get
I'm
money
aware.
towards NUSD, the county, so it's been on there. We had that with that committee. I think it's time to resurrect that committee if we're gonna go forth and look at how do we put a whole plan together.
The plan was put together.
Right.
It could not be implemented because it could not be funded, or none of these things would be like they
Well,
are.
we had not only that area, there was quite a few
Well,
areas.
yeah.
That
Yeah,
whole plan,
absolutely.
You have Iroquois
You and I
and
live
Blackhawk.
in one.
I still have one.
Iroquois and Blackhawk is another area.
There's all kinds of, and the stormwater committee put together the plan,
My
the
thought being is
cost,
I don't want.
and the way to do it,
That's
and we
amazing.
could
I
do it.
know, but I don't want to
I've got-
ignore
if
the
you're getting
comments.
to
I'm
that,
saying this is a
I've got a
mechanism
structural
that we
engineer
have in
coming
place
up
that
next
must
week,
be
but you need to look at that, because
Because
the
we
amount
met
of
with
water
everyone.
we're getting us,
We
we
met
might have to
with
close
the
that road.
We met actually
It's
with
cool,
other
yes.
communities to see how they would try this
That
out
culvert's
to
gonna
get the money.
Just blow it up, that's all.
Money, but the one plan was to get
Are you
them
willing to say
funding,
something
so.
also?
You're up, Tom.
I'm over on Seminole Lane, right where the storm system starts. The people up on Shoshone, north side of Shoshone, were complaining about 3 or 4 years ago about water building up there. Pipe was put across Shoshone from the north side of Shoshone to the south side of Shoshone, which therefore put all that water into the east side of Seminole Lane, which is the side that comes down to the storm sewer. Fine and dandy. All the houses on the south side of Shoshone, all their yards are sloped down, and it all dumps to the back, and it all comes down behind everybody's house.
Okay.
All comes to the same collection point. Also, on my side, I'm on the east side of Seminole. The culvert pipe, the last culvert pipe before my house is 18 to 20 inches below the catch basin. I've never seen water run uphill, and to this day, it still hasn't. And I keep getting, well, we're not gonna do anything about that. So I've been living with this. The other problem, across the street, the city's not replacing culvert pipes anymore. That program, my understanding, is gone. It's the homeowner. What gets the homeowner to replace the pipe that's half caved in? The apron, concrete apron is dipped. Culvert pipe's caving in. So therefore, the water is restricted from going down there. I get this deluge of water running down between my neighbor and me. Plus, there's a 4-inch line that runs down between the two houses. The builder put that in. That belongs to me, it doesn't belong to the city. I keep that thing cleaned out as much as I can. The debris in the culverts washes down, ends up right there. and
Let me
it's-
ask you, you
it's a
said a
mess.
pipe came from one side, or whose pipe was that? Did somebody put that in, or who put that in?
Crossover.
Which pipe?
The crossover pipe you're talking about?
City,
The city put it.
city put it in.
So
I
they
walked
hooked
up and I asked,
Okay.
what are you doing? They said, putting the pipe in. I said, you're sending all the water here. Well, the pipe was here before. Okay, maybe the pipe was there before the houses were ever built
Okay.
down on the
I
other
see.
end of Seminole.
I see.
30 years ago, that was fine.
Yeah.
Today, it isn't fine.
Today it's not so good. I get you.
Would be
Go ahead.
better to send it down, down Cherokee Run. It'd be a straighter shot of the north side of Shoshone would be a better straighter shot down Cherokee Run to get to Indian Creek.
So,
And that would take a lot of burden off of us.
okay, well, why don't, Jim, if
Well,
you get a
I was
chance to
just gonna
talk
ask
to
you,
him?
sir, who did you talk to? How long ago was this?
This has been going on for 30 years.
Okay. Would you please call my office, talk to me?
Okay.
Okay, it's 330-468-8326. That's my number. And then we could start the process.
Okay.
There's a lot of, you're not alone. There's a lot of areas like that. We know we need to start addressing them.
What was the?
330-468-8326. You'll get to me.
8326.
26.
I'm hard of hearing you.
26. 8326.
And that, I keep
And
that 4-inch line cleaned out. I realize that 4-inch line is not big.
We have a lot of issues, but if we can't address them or even start the process unless we know about it. So, and I know whatever's the past is the past, we need to go forward.
Bill? Bill, I see you brought, you're not throwing them.
Only 10 cents a piece. Excellent paperweights. I don't know if you want to throw it at the
Is that
dog
from
or
Bonnie
cat,
or
but-
Blueberry?
That's from Blueberry.
Okay.
At any rate, I think there's an enormous cost here that is quite evident in terms of getting the roads up to the shape that we need them to be in. I support the idea that we need to examine it, and we need to look at it long range, and we need to come up with some financial solutions to this. Part of the problem historically, I think, is that everybody who runs for office generally adopts the notion that we're not going to increase the taxes. Thereby, most people figure they don't have to pay any taxes. Or if taxes come up, they get upset. The recent thing in regard to the income tax, which I think is good, it's a proposal, I think it could be considered, et cetera. But it says that 100% of the income tax would be forgiven for any people who live in Macedonia. I'm willing to accept that I need to pay for that. And I think many people would be. I do not think that you can just give this and all the workers who are coming in from somewhere else are going to pay for our roads. And then, I'm not speaking against this as a broad conception of what possibly to do. I'm speaking more in regard to the question of who's responsible for this. The people of the city of Macedonia are responsible for it. We should be paying more. Insofar as you look at the financing, I wouldn't just simply excuse the people. I might cut it here or there or whatever, but they should be paying some towards this.
Well, we clearly, one of the things that I wanted to establish tonight is the scope of the problem is not this small. The scope is huge.
It's huge.
And we need to have a regular and long-term plan to deal with this because we're not going to fix it this year. We're not. We don't have the money to fix it this year, nor do we have an income stream that we can refer to fix it this year. But we need to move to a point where we can look at this. So I'm
So
I'm
I
going
have
to-
a question, though, just like
What might fix
what he just said, okay? That takes us back to what happened to my parents on Columbia Road. All the homeowners on Columbia Road,
had an
when
assessment.
they widened all that, the residents had to pay.
I know.
But they also had sewers. There was
Well,
a,
everything.
it's not apples to
No,
apples.
I know, but it was
comparison.
everything, Janet, it was the widening of the road, the sewers and sidewalks.
I know.
But every resident on that road, all the way down from Detroit, all the way to Lorraine, ended up having, all
An
the
assessment.
residents had to pay a certain amount of money. If, that's an idea too,
It
if we're,
is.
I mean, nobody wants to talk about it, but this gentleman, and it's like I told him out there, I was glad he talked last week. I've even called around this week about levies, other communities, does people have road and sewer, levies? Because we gotta do something.
Right, and we found
And-
out that many of them do not have road levies, but they're not in our condition either. And so,
But like he said, everybody's afraid to say it,
Well,
I'm not afraid to say it. If
I'm
we
not
have
afraid to
ask
say
the
anything.
residents to sometimes help fix our roads, we might have to do that.
well, we
And
may
I
have to do
talked about
many things.
reducing income tax credit.
Here's the
And I was
deal.
told that was not gonna fly. In fact, a rumor mill went out that I'm raising your taxes. But it's an idea that you need to take a look at. Do you reduce the income tax credit? I mean, I'm gonna pay no matter what, because I
Right.
still work and I live here, but I have my income. So whatever we do personally impacts me and my household and my neighbors. I also think the statement of we're not gonna do anything this year is not true. We're gonna find a way to do something, because there
Well,
is money.
I'm saying we're not solving this big problem this
Right.
year. I'm just saying
Well,
that.
next Thursday we can do something,
Right.
and that's
Well,
something that, you know,
June,
I hope
we're
that you
talking about
guys
this.
can reevaluate.
All right, let's adjourn here.
Can I just say one thing, as a resident on Driftwood? I just think that the residents should get the opportunity to vote on whether they want to pay for the road repairs. This problem isn't going away.
It sure
You
is.
might think it's going away, it's not going away. There's a plan there of all the poor roads. They need $1 million a year, period. It's just, you might think that 400 is gonna fix it, it's not. They need $1 million a year, you need to find it, and if the residents don't wanna pay for it, then they're gonna have to deal with it, but ultimately, you need to let the residents decide whether they wanna raise their taxes for it. So,
Okay, we are adjourned, thank you. Used to be mine.
I can tell you.
Hey Sylvia,
Yeah.
you know something? You struck on something.